It was the dead of night, July 3, 2025, when the unthinkable nearly unfolded. In the icy black waters off Iceland's coast, one of America's most formidable warships, the USS Gerald, came within moments of being ambushed by a Russian submarine on the command deck of the USS Thomas Hudner. Silence shattered when the sonar operator picked up the faintest anomaly, a ghostly echo in the depths, the sound of something that didn't belong. A shadow had slipped dangerously close to the carrier, hidden and waiting. What had begun as a routine patrol suddenly became a heart-stopping standoff. In minutes, the intruder revealed itself as a Yasen-class nuclear attack submarine, one torpedo away from crippling the pride of the U.S. Navy. The world teetered on the edge of a potential global crisis. The clock read to 17 a.m. The Thomas Hudner, an Arleigh Burke-class destroyer, was on station within the Ford's carrier strike group, tasked with monitoring North Atlantic waters for ordinary maritime activity. But this night was anything but ordinary. Sonar technician Second Class Rodriguez had caught something unusual to deliberate, too mechanical to be nature. The contact was moving at 12 knots, closing straight toward the Gerald R. Ford. His gut told him this wasn't random ocean noise. It was a predator. General quarters was sounded instantly. Captain Sarah Mitchell, a veteran commander, wasted no time in initiating Protocol 7 Navy procedure for countering hostile subs near high-value targets. Destroyers shifted formation. Frigates deployed sonobuoys to weave a defensive barrier of sound, yet the Russian sub held its advantage only 38 miles away, cloaked in silence and using the ocean's thermal layers to evade detection. Intelligence suggested it was likely the Severodvinsk or one of her sister ships, stealthy, lethal, and perfectly positioned to strike. For 14 agonizing minutes, the standoff hung by a thread. The Navy's answer came fast. A P-8, a Poseidon maritime patrol aircraft launched from Naval Air Station Keflavik, streaking toward the strike group. Its mission: drop a wall of sonobuoys to box the intruder in. The Poseidon's advanced acoustic sensors and magnetic anomaly detection gear could pinpoint even the quietest submarines in hostile waters. Within minutes, the barrier was in place. The predator was trapped. But the Navy's strategy didn't stop there. 40 nautical miles away, the USS Virginia, a nuclear fast attack submarine, had already been vectored toward the contact. Using its own cutting-edge sonar systems, it closed the gap, engaging the Russian sub in a tense undersea cat-and-mouse game. Each commander knew that one wrong move, one stray sound, could be fatal. The Yasen attempted to dive deeper, slipping into cold layers of water to mask its presence. But it was too late. The US had achieved a firing solution lock. The carrier was safe for the moment. Then came the psychological play. Through an underwater telephone system, the Virginia transmitted a blunt, unmistakable warning in English and Russian: unknown submarine, you are being tracked. Recommend immediate departure. The message was both a deterrent and a declaration the hunter had become the hunted. The Russian commander now faced a choice: attempt a risky escape or stand down. The Virginia held its course, shadowing every move, while the P-8A maintained constant sonar coverage. Destroyers stood ready to unleash a barrage if the enemy made a hostile move, but then the unexpected happened. The Russian sub launched a new kind of strike, not with torpedoes, but with code. A cyber attack rippled through the US strike group, scrambling communications, distorting sonar returns, and delaying sensor feeds. For the first time, Moscow had unleashed digital warfare in the middle of an undersea engagement. For a tense few moments, even the Navy's most advanced systems stumbled. But US cyber defense teams acted instantly. Countermeasures isolated compromised systems, restored communications, and shut the intrusion down. The Russian sub's gambit had failed. The incident was more than a close call. It was a glimpse into the new face of modern warfare. Naval battles no longer played out solely in steel and salt water. Now they span the skies, the seas, and the invisible domain of cyberspace. Strategically, the US Navy had shown why it remains unmatched: layered defense systems, rapid coordination between ships, aircraft, and subs, and the ability to adapt in real time to an evolving threat. The Gerald R. Ford survived untouched, but the encounter exposed how narrow the margin for error had become in the 21st century's high-stakes game of deterrence. Had the Yasen struck, the consequences would have been catastrophic, not just the loss of an $11 billion carrier and her crew, but a seismic shift in the balance of global power. NATO would have been forced into immediate, overwhelming retaliation. The world would have plunged toward the brink. Instead, the United States sent a different message, one of resolve, readiness, and technological dominance. The near ambush underscored an unavoidable truth: peace is fragile, and deterrence depends on vigilance. As long as the U.S. Navy sails, ready to face threats in any domain, sea, air, or digital, America's adversaries will know that the cost of testing that resolve could be far too high. Miles away from the carrier strike group, the USS Virginia, one of America's most advanced, nuclear-powered attack submarines, was already in motion. Deep beneath the waves, her sophisticated sonar arrays swept the cold, dark expanse of the North Atlantic, methodically triangulating the position of a hostile intruder, a Russian submarine that had crept far too close to the USS Gerald R. Ford. Every ping, every faint echo was carefully analyzed, feeding a constant stream of data into the Virginia's fire control systems. The hunter was closing in on the hunted, but the Russians were no amateurs. They, too, knew they were being tracked. What followed was a silent, high-stakes duel of wits, a deadly cat-and-mouse game played hundreds of feet below the surface. Down here, sound is life, and silence is survival. The tiniest metallic scrape, the softest misjudgment in course or depth, could betray a submarine's position in an instant, handing the other side the chance to strike. This was no ordinary patrol. It was a razor's edge standoff where one wrong move could trigger a chain of events leading to catastrophic loss. As both submarines maneuvered cautiously through the inky depths, the tension mounted with every passing second. The Russian commander, realizing the noose was tightening, ordered a descent into deeper, colder waters, a time-honored tactic to exploit thermal layers and slip away from sonar detection. But the maneuver came too late. The Virginia's crew had already secured what experts call a firing solution lock, the precise three-dimensional position of their adversary. For now, the Gerald R. Ford and her escorts were safe. But safety in such waters was always temporary. A single lapse in vigilance could turn victory into disaster. That's when the U.S. Navy unleashed a calculated psychological strike. Using an underwater telephone system, the Virginia broadcast a blunt, unmistakable message delivered in both English and Russian: "Unknown submarine, you are being tracked. Recommend immediate departure from this area." The meaning was clear: the hunter had become the prey. The Russian submarine was no longer a shadow, it was a target. The move was designed not just to warn, but to rattle the enemy's nerves, forcing their commander into a decision: attempt a desperate breakaway or concede and withdraw. Meanwhile, the Virginia kept pace, shadowing every movement with mechanical precision. Above, the Navy's P-8 Poseidon maritime patrol aircraft dropped sonar buoys in a carefully planned pattern, feeding continuous positional updates to the Virginia's control room. On the surface, destroyers and frigates in the carrier's screen adjusted formation, ready to pounce if the encounter escalated into open conflict. The web was tightening, every strand coordinated, every asset in harmony. Still, the standoff was far from over. For more than 14 tense minutes, the Russian sub held position, perhaps waiting for a perfect firing angle, perhaps searching for an opening to flee. Each passing moment increased the odds of its detection and reduced its chances of escape. The Virginia's relentless tracking underscored a stark truth. This was not merely about protecting one warship. It was about demonstrating the United States Navy's unmatched dominance in submarine warfare, its ability to hunt, corner, and neutralize any threat in contested waters. Realizing the danger was now acute, the Russian commander gambled again, ordering a deeper dive into the black void of the Atlantic abyss. At such depths, maneuverability declines and countermeasures become harder to evade. It was a desperate move, and desperation makes mistakes inevitable. But before the Americans could close the final gap, the operation took another twist. In an unexpected maneuver, the Gerald R. Ford and her entire strike group altered course. This wasn't just about creating distance. It was a deliberate move to complicate the Russian sub's targeting solution, forcing constant recalculations and further eroding any chance of an effective attack. The U.S. Navy had transitioned from defense to full-spectrum dominance, dictating the tempo, location, and terms of the engagement. By the close of the 14-minute window, the mission's primary objectives had been achieved. The carrier was secure, the Russian submarine had lost the initiative, and the U.S. Navy had once again proven its ability to assert control over the North Atlantic's most dangerous depths. Yet the encounter's significance stretched far beyond one night's work. It was a message to Moscow and to the world that America's resolve, backed by unmatched technology and precision, would not bend under pressure. The hunted Russian submarine made a move no one in the U.S. Navy had fully anticipated, an unconventional, high-stakes gamble designed to tilt the balance. Instead of relying solely on stealth and torpedoes, it unleashed a barrage of cyber warfare. For a tense few moments, U.S. command systems shuddered under the digital assault. Communications scrambled, sonar readings warped, and sensor data lagged behind reality. It was a calculated risk, Moscow's first known attempt to integrate advanced cyber attacks directly into a live naval engagement. The goal was clear: by the submarine precious seconds, either to slip away undetected or maneuver into position for a lethal strike. The U.S. Navy had trained for countless undersea tactics, but a cyber strike in the midst of such a high-stakes confrontation was something new entirely. Even the most advanced radar and sonar briefly faltered, proving that modern warfare is fought as much in the electromagnetic spectrum it is in the depths of the ocean. But the U.S. Navy was ready. In seconds, electronic warfare teams launched countermeasures. Advanced defensive systems sprang into action, isolating compromised networks and restoring full operational control. The intrusion was beaten back, but the attempt left its mark, a stark reminder of how quickly and unpredictably the battle space is evolving. This was no longer just a contest of ships and submarines. It had become a multi-dimensional fight, where cyber sabotage could shape the outcome just as much as torpedoes or missiles. The Russian sub's escape was far from assured, but for both sides, the incident underscored an unavoidable truth: the struggle for dominance would never again be limited to the physical realm. The events of July 3, 2025, in the cold waters of the North Atlantic, were more than a close call for the USS Gerald R. Ford. They were a wake-up call for militaries worldwide. In mere minutes, the world watched the full spectrum of modern naval warfare unfold, a deadly chess match involving stealthy, state-of-the-art submarines, psychological brinkmanship, and a live cyber intrusion that complicated an already volatile encounter. From a tactical perspective, the U.S. Navy's response was flawless. Layered sonar defenses, P-8 Poseidon patrol aircraft, and the vigilant USS Virginia worked in seamless coordination. Every detection, track, and counteraction played out with textbook precision, underscoring American dominance in contested waters. Yet the implications reached far beyond a single engagement. The near ambush revealed a new era of undersea conflict where cyber attacks, stealth technologies, and advanced underwater systems are woven into global military strategy. The Navy, still unmatched in capability, now faces the reality of multi-domain warfare where the ocean, sky, and digital battlefield collide. NATO's approach to underwater defense will inevitably shift, and future US-Russian encounters could be even more complex and unpredictable. Technological innovation and tight international coordination will be essential to keep the balance. The shockwaves from this encounter rippled through military and political circles. What began as a routine operation nearly escalated into a disaster that could have altered history. The loss of the Gerald, our $4 $11 billion supercarrier, would have meant more than destroyed hardware and lost lives. It would have shattered NATO's security architecture and triggered overwhelming retaliation, pushing the world to the brink of a geopolitical crisis unlike any seen in decades. In the end, the United States once again demonstrated that it is not just a military superpower, but the keystone of global stability. The episode reinforced the value of strength, readiness, and technological edge in an unpredictable world where threats can emerge from beneath the waves, above the clouds, or through invisible data streams. The lesson is clear: strength deters chaos. As long as the US Navy remains vigilant, peace has a chance to hold. But the near miss in the North Atlantic is a reminder: no matter how prepared we are, we must always be ready for the unthinkable. History is being written in real time, and the world cannot afford to look away.